So tonight we're going to continue and end with the advice to the cook, Dogen Zenji's essay on the right approach to activity. And the activity here happens to be working in the kitchen, a kitchen of a monastery, but it can be any kitchen and in fact any activity. But specifically here, and we saw in the beginning, the piece begins with addressing the history of how central the Tenzo, the head cook's role is, and how necessary it is to have what he calls the way-seeking mind, the mind that is seeking the way, and to maintain that intention in your activity, which is really the beginning and end of this whole, approach. Is, do you know why you're doing what you're doing? Basically, that's the question. Why are you doing what you're doing? I mean, is it part of your path, or is it just kind of to get it over with, to get back on your path? So he's entreating us, really advising us and instructing us to cultivate that way-seeking mind in our activity. Now, you turn on your car, you're on the road. Is the road your way? You're making your bed, you're cutting your vegetables. Are you preparing a monastic meal to nourish the Dharma? Is this what you're doing? Do you have a way-seeking mind in your activity, raking leaves, planting plants? What are we doing? Well, we tend to know what we're doing. I'm doing this, I'm cleaning the floor, I'm writing an email, I'm talking to a friend, I'm teaching a class. Why are you doing it? Why? Are we aware of the why in our moment-to-moment activity? And does it become part of your great way? Not your personal way, but this sort of universal way. This advice is not just personal advice, it's really universal advice. So that was how this whole piece started, to get us in the right state of mind. And then we had he mentioned on some experiences he had when he was in China and meeting some Tenzos there, and how they seem to really have a profound awareness of what they were doing. Specifically, a very old monk who would not give his work to anyone else. Now, this is my job, and why don't you do it later? Because this is when I have to do it. So he was very aware of what he had to do, and that now was the most important moment. Now was the moment to do this job. And that was the exchange that Dogen had when he was in China with a Tenzo, a very old Tenzo. And then after that, we had... so basically he's exhorting us to do your job and do it now. You cannot postpone the work you need to do. Because your habits of not being on the way will then accumulate. Yeah? Like for instance, let's say you sit every day. Okay? You're creating a pattern and a habit for yourself. Right? Let's say you read some Dharma or whatever inspires you every day, and you start to awaken a sort of motivation in your life. Now stop doing that, and after a month, how strong is the motivation and the push? Well, it takes then a lot more effort to come back and say, okay, well, this is this is my practice. Right? So this is part of the the approach here is that we're not talking about something like special and precious. Precious means like I'm just going to save it for, when I find that quiet time. No, it's now, right? Or never. So you can't put it off. And as the old monk said, like, I can't have other people do it for me. He's just drying mushrooms in the sun. Like, why don't you have someone else do it? It's like such a simple job. You're the Tenzo. Get like one of your, helpers, assistants to do it. Right now, I have to do this. And so there's an important instruction there. You got to take responsibility for your way, and nobody else is going to walk your path for you. And if you don't start walking now, when are you going to walk it? So, this old monk was giving some very, very basic instruction to Dogen that he took to heart. And if you remember what he said at the end, he said, there was nothing else to say. That's one of my favorite lines of this whole piece. What else is there to say? There's nothing else to say. Like, he got what he needed to. And then he went back to Japan and tried to instruct and wrote this piece. So then the third thing that we encountered, perhaps it was last week, was that really beautiful paragraph of not getting joy from having great ingredients and pride, perhaps, and not despairing when you don't have good ingredients. Remember, you can take it just on the basic level of like you open your cupboard, you open your fridge, and there's nothing there. Well, look again, maybe there is. Or having a full fridge and thinking like, yeah, I'm so wonderful. So the middle way for him is saying like, he said, take some grass and make it into a 16-foot golden Buddha. All right, that's taking the simple things you have and seeing that that's exactly what you need to realize your way. But the middle way is seeing the other side as well, and take that 16-foot golden Buddha and transform it into some simple grass. So when your conditions are very supportive and very good, sometimes we think like, I have it's so great right now. Like, let's say you're in a wonderful place and everything's going your way and you've got lots of success and you've got support and people and everything you need. You're on top of the world. That's when you need to take that Buddha and make it into grass. Right? It's the modesty there. What does that mean? It means that you know that it's going to pass. You appreciate it, but you don't take it personally. Right? You don't take it personally. These conditions are shifting in the sand right now. It's wind shifting the sand. They're coming together and they're supported right now. The 60-foot golden Buddha, all the conditions, the ingredients I need. Because it's like, because you have these really rich and fine ingredients, like, don't get so much pleasure out of that. So we know it's going to pass. And as well, when the conditions seem to be a little lacking, right? Which often seems to be a very common experience. Like, these conditions, how am I going to make a fine meal out of these conditions? Right? A nourishing Dharma. How am I going to create a nourishing Dharma meal out of these conditions? So that, again, is where he says, well, that's your practice. How do you transform that into a 16-foot golden Buddha? I think it's that middle way of saying, yeah, you take the difficulty, you take the pleasure, right? And they both are equal, right? They're equally your path of an awakened way. If you have, as he said in the beginning, make sure you have the way-seeking mind. And then you'll see that this is what I need. And you'll see that this is what I need. And you'll understand that, and tomorrow the conditions will be different. I'll open the cupboard and there'll be a new set of ingredients that are waiting for me. Right? How do I cook with them? So this is where we're at with and as to how, again, it's that how, and I want to go to a section here, if I can find it with you for a second. Okay. There's a lot of really wonderful things here. But since this is the last evening I want to spend on this, and you'll take it home and read what you like, I want to go all the way to page number 9. So we just skipped a whole lot, which is waiting for you. Just waiting for you. Take it and enjoy it at your own pace, in your own time. Okay. So I'm at where it says, okay, at the top, when we train in any of the offices of the monastery, we should do so with a joyful heart, a motherly heart, a vast heart. Okay, these are the 3 attitudes. These are 3 attitudes that he's going to explain now, which are really central. So when we, again, it sometimes seems a little bit abstract, like what is the way-seeking mind? But Dogen is going to now explain more specifically what he means when he says you should have, the right intention. The right intention is here. And so I want us to consider this. A joyful heart rejoices and recognizes meaning. You should consider that were you to be born in the realm of the shining beings, you would be absorbed in indulgence with the qualities of that realm, so that you would not rouse the recognition of uncovering the way, and so have no opportunity to practice. And so how could you use cooking as an offering to the 3 jewels? Nothing is more excellent than the 3 jewels of the Buddha, the teachings, and the community, the Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha, of those who practice and realize the way. Neither being the king of gods nor a world ruler can even compare with the 3 jewels. The joyful mind. We are rejoicing. This is another way of stating having deep appreciation for your human, what's called rebirth, for your state of being right now. What does it mean that you're born a human? Well, saying like, if you were born in really, really excellent, rich, pleasurable, comfortable conditions. I mean, in the Buddhist kind of ideas, they have these different realms of like 6 realms, and there's like a human realm, then there's like gods and heavenly deities and whatever. Okay, it just means we can take it symbolically to mean that if you were born without any problems at all, that would be a big problem. Because how would you come to think maybe there's something else other than just pleasure and wealth? If you only have pleasure and wealth, where would come the thought that maybe there's more to life? Where would the aspiration, where would the inspiration to practice be? If you're just, the jealous gods, the level of God realm in Buddhist realms of rebirth, they're called jealous gods. Because even though they're like so supremely wealthy and powerful and beautiful, they're still comparing themselves with each other. Like he has 13 billion, I only have 10, right? He got a new private jet and mine is 2 years old. Jealous gods. Even at the highest level, it still is active. Whereas you can take that and offer it to the 3 jewels, Buddha, Dharma, Sangha, which just means offering your life, your wealth, your fortune to the path of awakening and compassion, of arousing that way-seeking mind. So we can appreciate, sometimes we think, okay, what am I missing? She or he has such a better situation. We're still comparing ourselves to others. But if we can take some of our difficulties and actually rejoice with the fact that this makes me aspire to relieve suffering, this makes me contemplate suffering. If you didn't have any suffering, how would you relate to suffering? How would you relate to suffering? It would just be abstract. It would be like, write a check and hope they get some food. Come on. Suffering, then, he's saying, the fact that you're not born in a very comfortable situation, is a source of joyful mind. That you can find some joy, that you have the right amount of difficulty to practice with. You're born human. To be human means to suffer. Not only, but that's an important acceptance you need to make, and that puts you on the path. So you can rejoice at that. The Zen monastic standard states, the monastic community is the most excellent of all things because those who live thus live beyond the narrowness of social fabrications. Not only do we have the fortune of being born as human beings, but also being able to cook meals to be offered to the three jewels. We should rejoice and be grateful for this. Yeah, that's pretty amazing that you can offer your life and your service and your activities to the three jewels. Now, he's specifically saying that if you're in a monastery, then you should be really grateful that you're not just cooking in a restaurant to serve people who are paying for it and will complain if it's not cooked well, and they just think they deserve it. Here we are cooking for what we hope is going to be an enlightened community. We can also reflect on how our lives would be were we to have been born in the realms of hell beings, hungry ghosts, animals, or jealous gods. How difficult our lives would be in those four situations, or if we had been born in any of the 8 adverse conditions, we would not then be able to practice together with the strength of a monastic community, even should it occur to us to aspire to it, let alone be able to offer food to the three jewels with our own hands. Instead, our bodies and minds would be bound within the limits of those circumstances, merely vessels of contraction. Okay, so instead of going up and saying you should be joyful and rejoice the fact that you don't have it too good, but also appreciate the middle way that you don't have it too bad. If you're to have it too bad, you can't tell a starving person or someone who is suffering terrible pain, meditate. That's just the wrong approach, right? You got to relieve that hunger and that suffering first, or that terrible poverty. You're not going to meditate your way out of poverty. So the fact that you are not in a really low level of your conditions are supportive, are good enough for you to aspire and to be motivated, is really a source of rejoicing. We should deeply appreciate the middle way that we have. That we're not too, privileged, and we're not too underprivileged. We're in the right place to be open to teachings. We can touch suffering, but we can also seek a way to transcend suffering. So we should be grateful for that, and that's the sense of rejoicing. Again, his vocabulary is dealing with the traditional Buddhist understanding of there's the human realm, and then underneath that there's animals, the rebirth thing where you can be born as an animal or as a hungry ghost or as a hell being, and the hell beings are really angry, and the hungry ghosts are just always hungry. Okay, and the animals are fearful, they're always afraid. So being in that situation makes practice really hard. Not only as a literal one, but just, in terms of having those emotions all the time with you, being hateful and angry, okay, being fearful, and seeking sensual pleasure all the time is just going to limit your ability to practice. So we should feel very grateful that we're not stuck in those places. It's hard to get out of. All right, so that's the joyful mind. This life we live is a life of rejoicing. This body, a body of joy, which can be used to present offerings to the three jewels. It arises through the merits of eons, and using it thus, its merit extends endlessly. I hope that you will work and cook in this way. Using this body, which is the fruition of thousands of lifetimes and births, to create limitless benefit for numberless beings. To understand this opportunity is a joyous heart, because even if you had been born a ruler of the world, the merit of your actions would merely disperse like foam, like sparks. Yeah. There's nothing sadder than seeing someone with a ton of privilege or power just wasting it and not using it for any good or benefit. And that merit then disperses like foam, he says, and won't come back. Now, what a waste. So, here he's saying that the reason we're here in this situation is the product of eons, thousands and thousands of years of development. And the fact that we're sitting here and we can be open to the Dharma, we should have incredible joy and appreciation that everything, all of history, led us to this point. You don't have to think literally about the thousands of lifetimes that perhaps you went through, but the thousands of lifetimes that existed before you. Just before you, all your ancestors and everyone who came in history before us led us to this moment. And here you are, conscious, healthy, thirsty for enlightenment, exposed to teachings with enough, conditions and difficulty to make it real. Wow. Now think about all of history. And you're born in this moment. So when he says thousands of lifetimes, you don't have to think it was necessarily your lifetime. I mean, that's perhaps what he was intending. But there were thousands of lifetimes before you that you are the product of. Okay, directly and indirectly. That's amazing, isn't it? You contemplate that for a moment and you'll see that I better use this life wisely. Because this has been, given to me through all the efforts of everyone who came before. And if I squander it, what a waste. I'm not honoring them. So wow, that's the source of rejoicing. A motherly heart. Okay, so now that was joy. That was a joyous heart. Just remember this. And then a motherly heart is a heart which maintains the three jewels as a parent cares for a child. A parent raises a child with deep love, regardless of poverty or difficulties. Their hearts cannot be understood by another. Only a parent can understand it. A parent protects their child from heat or cold before worrying about whether they themselves are hot or cold. This kind of care can only be understood by those who have given rise to it and realized only by those who practice it. This, brought to its fullest, is how you must care for water and rice, as though they were your own children. Very high intention there. Okay, very high intention. Right. And here's Dogen, a monk who obviously didn't have children. Now, but this type of heart, the caring motherly heart, of looking around and seeing not just the people as your children, but the inanimate objects as your children. What does that mean? I mean, not literally your children, but that same sense of, I'm responsible for this. Like, I am responsible for this. And if not me, who? That goes back to the old monk who said, no, I'm drying the mushrooms. These mushrooms depend on me, nobody else. That was a parental attitude. Okay? That was saying like, I gotta take care of this. This is my responsibility. So, and out of a place of care. Not just because I was told to do this, but real deep care. So that's the beauty of it here. He's saying you're practicing this way out of a deep love because you really care and you want things to work out for the best. And that's really that's heart. That's real heart, parental heart. Now, sometimes I think some of the way Dogen writes and speaks here is a bit of what's called a hyperbole. Like, he goes really high up so that we can just kind of get halfway. I mean, not realistic to say, I'm going to make rice tonight and I'm going to care for my child. It's just simply not. But by aiming for the highest he can go, he's hoping that we will get just a step up. If we can just get a step up so that we care a little more, then I feel like he's done his job. So the last heart is this. The great master Shakyamuni, who is the Gautama Buddha, the historical Buddha, offered to us the final 20 years of his own lifetime to protect us through these days of decline. What is this other than the exertion of this parental heart? The thus come one did not do this, hoping to get something out of it, but sheerly out of munificence. So this is coming from a story that the Buddha actually, because he was caring for his disciples and caring in order to take the alms, that he was supposed to live another 20 years, but because he cared, he allowed himself to eat bad food and died early. That was like a gesture of deep care, that he gave an extra 20 years of his life to show love. Next paragraph. Vast heart, vast, is like a great expanse of ocean or a towering mountain. It views everything from the most inclusive and broadest perspective. This vast heart does not regard a gram as too light or 5 kilos as too heavy. It does not follow the sounds of a spring or try to nest in the spring garden. It does not darken with the colors of autumn. See the changes of the seasons as all one movement. Understand light and heavy in relation to each other, within a view which includes both. When you write or study the character vast, this is how you should understand its meaning. If the Tenzo Jieshan had not thus studied the word vast, he could not have woken up Elder Fu by laughing at him. If Zen Master Guishan had not understood the word vast, he would not have blown on dead firewood 3 times. If the monk Dongshan had not understood the word vast, he could not have taught the monk through his expression 3 pounds of flax. All of these and other great masters through the ages have studied the meaning of vast or great, not only through the word for it, but through all the events and activities of their lives. Thus, they lived as a great shout of freedom through presenting the great matter, penetrating the great question, training great disciples, and in this way, bringing it all forth to us. The abbot, senior officers, and staff, and all monks should always maintain these 3 hearts or understandings. Written in the spring of 1237. So this vast heart, it's more than just equanimity. I mean, one of the ways he says, you should, accept a gram is not small and 5 kilos is not heavy. The grass is not too poor an ingredient and the creams is not too rich. That equanimity he is referring to here. But it's more than that. How do you see your specific life as a universal life? How do you see that other people, what they're living is a Buddha expression? How do you understand that the singular and particular activity is at the same time a universal activity? And that love directed to one object or one person is love directed to all beings. How can you see the whole in the part? And this is the vast mind, that you see the universal and you see the unity of all things, but through the particular. It does not erase the particular. That's why he says, don't see the gram, that little weight, as too little. Right? It all counts, but you have that vast mind where you see it all as part of this great way. So these 3 minds, he says, he's exhorting us, he's saying this is how you should at all times practice. He goes on to give the examples of some of the great masters before him who are referred to in the koans collections that I sometimes talk about, like the 3 pounds of flax. And saying, when the master said, what does the Buddha weigh? And he answered 3 pounds of flax, 3 pounds of seed, whatever. A simple object. That was an expression of vast mind. He wasn't saying the simple object. He was saying everything is Buddha, meaning an awakened reality. Do you see it? Or are you still lost in yourself? If you don't see it, it's not because it's not real and not there. It's simply because you don't see it. What's your problem? We have to cultivate the vast mind. It will give meaning to your specific activities, much more than you as an individual could do. When you see it as all part of this great way, then the difficulties you experience and the pleasures and successes, they all fall in perspective. There's no more small or big. There's no more right or wrong even from the vast mind. From the parental mind, there's the caring, so nothing is hurt and nothing is lost. That's the motherly or parental mind. And from the joyful mind, you're not going to waste a moment, because this life is a gift. And if you waste it, then you're insulting all those who came before you, who gave their lives so that you could be here. So let us cultivate the great way and take Dogen's advice to the Tenzo, which is you, to heart, by cultivating these three hearts: the joyful heart, the parental heart, and the vast heart. And you'll be following your way.